in the context of faith, just to help people get a sense of who you are.
Sure.
I wonder if you could describe the first time, perhaps as a child, when you felt you had a special relationship with God.
Special relationship with God. I think a part of my whole upbringing was always that special relationship with God. Praying at the bedside, learning the sign of the cross, going to church with my family. In fact, people ask me when my first vocational call came, and people smile, but I usually say, according to the family stories, it's 2.5 or 3. It was outside of church, and the neighbors kind of said, "Now, Jerome, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And a priest passed by, and I said, "That's what I want to be." And of course, they laughed, and they said, "Sure, he'll grow out of that one."
Right.
But I never did. It was always been this deepening relationship of and that desire to be priest.
Can you recall maybe a particular moment when you might have been in church or somewhere, or riding your bike? I don't know, something where you really felt like you had a kind of a confirmation of that calling?
It has been a constant, everyday affirmation of that. So I've never felt, apart from it, that I was doing the wrong thing. Always felt that that's what I was called to do. But it was always affirming what I had desired to be. Now, that's different. That's what's unique about a vocational call. Vocational calls are different. I had classmates who were, just getting ready to get married, and all of a sudden turned around and said, "No, I've got to go." And imagine going to your fiance and kind of say, "Do you have a call to the priesthood?" Sure you do. But yet, so each vocational call is different. Some guys came late in college. They did. For me, my vocational call was kind of like womb to tomb. So that's where I was. So.
When you felt that you were being called to be a priest, did you have a sense for what God was calling you to do?
Well, that aspect of it grew in my estimation. As a young boy, of course, if you're 5 or 6 wanting to be a priest, you kind of think, well, I'll be an altar boy, and then after an altar boy, I'll be a priest. So that's the servers at the mass. As you start to grow a little bit, you realize, oh my gosh, there's like 12 years of education after you graduate from grammar school. You have to do all these studies, and so there was a constant sense. But with it gave you literally the sense of the breadth and the depth of the religious leader who is priest, who is pastor to his community.
Aside from preaching the gospel, I wonder if you felt like there's something specifically you were being called to do for people. There's something, teaching role or...
Well, I was called to be a teacher. Yeah. So for most of my 24 and a half years of the first 25 years of my priesthood was back in the seminary teaching. So I was teaching. But part of the aspect of the priest is to be teacher. I didn't envision myself as teacher, so I didn't. But this was the request that the church made on me, and so that was one that I submitted myself. I've always found that if you allow God to use you as an instrument, and there's a great story about a priest who I admired. He said, remember that you're just a pencil in the hand of God. So if you allow Him to write, He'll write the story that He wants through you, but you have to submit yourself to that sense.
One of the things that makes you different from some other priests is your experience in the Army Reserves, where you retired as a lieutenant colonel. Did you feel drawn to the military, or was it something?
There was a need. And because of the need, I responded to it, and I said, yes, I'm basically a patriot. So I believe in the freedoms that our country enjoys, and I'm appreciative of the men and women who help protect those freedoms. Put their sacrifice and put their lives on the line. So my sense was, this was one way to give back to the country. This was one way to serve the people in the military as a chaplain. And I never regret, a day that I spent with them.
From that Army Reserve experience, did that help Can you think of ways that help shape you as a priest or a bishop?
Well, when you're with the Army Reserves, you're all into evaluation processes. You have to do performance evaluations. You have to do after action reports. You have they'll tell the Army runs on its stomach. It actually runs on its paper. Because you have to generate the amount. But all of that is to tighten up the process of whatever unit that you're working with, and to make sure you focus and you stay on mission. Blending those aspects of serving the religious needs of the men and women in the armed forces, and understanding the structure and a part of the mission that you contribute to was very important. I take a look at a diocese, an archdiocese. And you take a look at the leadership, and the leadership has to be involved with the same thing. Taking a look at the mission, involved in the performance evaluations of various individuals to make sure that they're on course serving the mission of the church.
Outside of religious life or church life for a moment, I wonder if there was a turning point for you in life that was really formative. It might be a person you meet, or the death of a loved one, something outside of the religious life that was really influential on you?
Sure. Well, or the death of parents are always the death of my father, the death of my mother. Certainly, those were moments of impact. For a priest, you always have a home until the death of your last parent. Then all of a sudden you kind of feel a bit of an orphan. I'm very thankful I have my sister who is very close to me, and so I share her home. Whenever I have a chance to go back to family, so those were important. Those were important aspects and really impacts in my life.
Can you just describe a little how that impacted you, the death of?
Oh, sure. Seeing my dad and letting go of my father. I've often said that my dad, in a particular way, and I say this to all parents. My dad would teach us how to live, correctly, rightly, in response. But in those last few months, he was teaching me how to die also, with a sense of tremendous dignity. And my mom, interesting, my mom always looked to life. Even when she took her last breath, it was always to life. And if you're a person of faith, that's exactly what you should look to, because it's a matter, as we say in the preface, life has changed, not ended. And so it's a matter of opening ourselves up to that moment, and both of them did that for me.
And just to wrap up, I wonder if you could describe if there's one Catholic who lived during your lifetime who had a great impact on you, a great influence?
Well, you'd have to be, during my lifetime, you'd have to be, totally out of touch if you wouldn't say John Paul II. His impact on so many for his 26 years of his papacy, the shock of being the first non-Italian pope in 450 years, and then watching this man as he literally became pastor to the world. I don't think there was a spot on the globe that he wasn't present to. But it gave everyone kind of a sense of unity. And then when they celebrated his funeral, to talk about well over 1 billion people, that were at least wanted some part, at least on television, it's something to be present, to his life. So, just a tremendous impact, and I'm a John Paul II bishop, so I was named by him. So now his successor, Benedict XVI, has been a man that has really risen to the task. Trying to follow, John Paul II, in it, and yet here is a man who has echoed the sense of love in all of his pastoral writings. In his presence, he's different than John Paul II, but the sense of a loving pastor comes very clear through this man.
Great. Thank you very much.
Hey, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks.